بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
إنك لا تنادي فهبوا يا بني قومي أسودا أعيدوا للدنا أمجاد عصر وفلوا بالحديد لنا القيودا.
Hello everyone, this is Colin once again. I'm making a rebuttal to Ahmed's Quran 3, also known as Ben, and so I'll be referring to Ahmed's Quran 3 as Ben throughout the rest of this video. And Ben made a new video entitled Israel in the Quran, part 204. This is segment A of B, so he's making two segments. In this video, his arguments are what I call a shotgun effect. He tries to cover a lot of ground, randomly citing certain verses, which I can't really understand what the point of it is, because he doesn't make any arguments about it, but I guess he's just trying to cover as much ground as possible, take up as much of our time, as he possibly can. Now, he mentions, his first argument is that the Quran refers to Israel as a tribe, but not as a person, and he says that in order for a Muslim to in order for a Muslim to actually understand that Israel is actually a person, the Muslim would have to read the Bible to get the story. Now, I do agree with him on some ground. I agree with him that to get the full story of how Jacob received his name Israel in the book of Genesis, one would have to read the book of Genesis. However, does the Quran really not refer to a one person as Israel, but rather only a tribe? Well, he makes that assumption, and I'm about to prove that he is completely wrong. For an example, when we look at the Tafsir of Al-Jalalain from Surah Maryam, chapter 19, verse 58. I'm going to read it from the Abdul Yusuf Ali translation, and I'm going to let you know what the Tafsir says. It says, "Those were some of the prophets on whom Allah did bestow His grace, of the posterity of Adam, and of those we carried in the ark with Noah, and of the posterity of Abraham and Israel." What was that? The posterity of Abraham and Israel, of those whom we guided and chose, etc., etc., etc. So it just said that the children of Abraham, the children of Israel. Okay? So if we look at the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir makes it very clear that in this list, what it means by the offspring of Abraham is Isaac, Jacob, and Ishmael. But what is it meant by the offspring of Israel? And in the context, we're seeing that Abraham and Israel are indeed two distinct persons, if you look at the context. And according to Ibn Kathir, the offspring of Israel, being a person, was Musa, Aaron, Zechariah, John the Baptist, and Jesus the son of Mary. The Tafsir of Ibn Jalalain is very clear. He says that the seed of Abraham is namely Ishmael, Isaac, and Jacob, and of the seed of Israel, who is Jacob. So here we have the scholars fully understand that Jacob and Israel are indeed one and the same person. I'll be posting those links in the description section, and therefore, Mr. Ben, Ahmed's Quran 3 is wrong. He then goes on to say that the Jews and the Christians didn't know who Allah was, and in the context of his video, he's saying that because God in the Quran is telling the Jews that they're doing something wrong, or the Christians are doing something wrong, and he says, well, they didn't know who Allah was outside the Arabian Peninsula. Well, that's not really debatable as far as semantics goes, but to say that they did not comprehend that the Allah in the Arabian Peninsula was known as the one God of the universe, I would say that many of them had that knowledge, since we have record of them understanding that concept. He says that the Jews kept their monotheism and covenant intact for 2,000 years. Really? Again, I find it hard to believe that Ben has fully read and comprehended the Hebrew Scriptures. He claims to have been studying the Hebrew Scriptures for, I think, he says 20 years. I find it hard to believe that someone who studied it for 20 years and actually would get this wrong. To say that the Jews kept their covenant and kept their, at least their covenant of the monotheism, if you will, intact throughout 2,000 years, to me, and even beyond that, I mean, to imply that they've never had pitfalls, I think even the average Jew would say that was incorrect. There have been many examples in the Hebrew Scriptures where, why did God send prophets in the first place to Israel? To bring them back on the right track. To remind them they were getting off course. They were not either keeping their covenant perfectly, or they were setting up idolatry in Israel. Why do you think they were punished with exile? That wasn't just because, God woke up one day and said, I think I'm going to, enslave my chosen people. That was done for a reason. And I think it's kind of interesting that Ben is totally ignorant of that. He says that the Arabs must have forgotten their covenant with Allah. They must have forgotten about Abraham, Ishmael, because they fell into idolatry. I don't see the correlation. They set up partners with God, but they didn't abandon God himself. They still worshipped him, but they set up partners with him. But we see that this has happened in many places. Again, I just mentioned the Jews' own history. So this is not just unique to the Arabs, this is unique to other people as well. I think this is sort of a strawman argument in the first place. Are we talking about Israel, by the way, in this video? Apparently not. He says that Muhammad learned and concocted facts from the Jews and the Christians, yet he gives no proof for this. And he has no proof for this. This is a classic Orientalist attack, which has no basis. He says that Muslims are ignorant of the Bible, the Quran, and the Hadith. And I would say, wow, what a generalization. Let's talk about ignorance. There's a recent book that was published about, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, and I believe it's called Religious Ignorance. And it's about how the average American knows nothing about not only his own religion, cannot even name the 4 Gospels, let alone talk about anybody else's religion if they are a Christian. Yet, we know that around the world, religious knowledge is actually better, is a subject that is better known. It is more widely taught than it is here in America. And that goes for people of all religions. So I think this is an overgeneralization on his part to say that Muslims not only are ignorant of the Bible, but also the Quran and the Hadith. But of course, Ben knows better than all Muslims, including Muslim scholars. Right. He says that Muslims have accused him of lying, but they show no proof. I have. Muhammad says Muhammad used the Torah, the Hebrew Bible, and the New Testament to back up the Quran. Really? I will be linking sources in my description section for articles that refute this argumentation. But the term Hebrew Bible, the term Bible, the term New Testament is nowhere used in the Quran. He has no evidence for this. He says that essentially says that he hated Jews because they were exposing his theology, that Muhammad hated the Jews because they were exposing him theologically in Medina. The Jews, the issue between Muhammad and the Jews was about their alliances, about their covenants. It was more of a diplomatic, political atmosphere, not a religious one. I don't see any sources that show a Jew rebuking a Muslim on a theological level, except for a couple of conversations. But for him to take those and use them, he's basically over-exaggerating this concept. He quotes a lot of verses that says that the Quran mentions the promised land for the Jews. He says, yet the Muslims would claim that they are the exclusive owners of it. Now he's going against history, the historical record. It's a historical fact. The Muslims were more tolerant than any other group when it came to when they were in control of Jerusalem. That's a fact. To deny this, you're denying the historical record. If we want to talk about intolerance towards people who the Promised Land was given to them, let's talk about how the Christians handled the Promised Land. To me, he's going against the historical record here, and he's in denial. He then quotes chapter 10, verse 92, where apparently God says to Muhammad, but if you're in doubt into what we have revealed to you, then go ask the people of the Scripture. And he says that this is like the one verse that destroys the Muslim argument that the Bible was corrupted. Again, I will be posting the Tafsirs in the description section. He is totally ignorant of what these verses and what Muslim scholars say about this, including Ibn Abbas himself, a companion of the Prophet. They all understood this. There are two things this verse is talking about. One, and this is even in his copy of the Quran, which Ahmad's Quran 3 has, the Noble Quran translation. He uses this on his website, and the scholars say very clear this is referring to if the Muhammad is in doubt that his name is mentioned in the scriptures of the Torah and the Gospel, they should go ask the people of the book. Another thing is just, yes, if you have any questions to the followers of Muhammad, you have any general questions, you can ask them. But when this was revealed to Muhammad, Muhammad said, I don't need to ask them. I'm not going to. I don't need to. So this verse is a rhetorical. This is rhetorical. This is not meant to be a command, and it was not handled as such by the Muslims or the Prophet Muhammad. I'll be posting those links in the description section to the Tafsirs. Thank you everyone for watching. Peace be with you all.